welcome back to a new installment of Murder, Myth, and Mysteries, or Murder, Mysteries, and Myth, however you want to talk about it. My true crime series. It's been a while. There's a lot of crime to go through and try to figure out the best ones. I really don't want to just pick the common ones because we all know about the Dahmers and the Gacy's, but we don't know about other crimes and other deaths and mysteries that are not as talked about. So that's what I'm trying to find. I've also ventured into another form of employment with the Funko Pops. So I do apologize for those. Those are just really quick. They're easy to produce, so I produce them quickly. But I'm back, and I'm going to try to, at least weekly, if not every other week, get a true crime thing up. So I do apologize, and thank you for sticking around if you have stuck around. And so if you're new, welcome back. Or if you're a subscriber, welcome back. If you're new, hello. I know I usually have some little quip at the beginning of my true crimes, but today I've got to start with a disclaimer. There's possibly some trigger subject matter in this. I tend not to use the vulgar words or anything like that. I mean, I swear like a sailor, but I'm trying not to do that here. And I'm trying not to be as extremely descriptive as some of the crimes are. This one I'm going to be because of the subject matter at hand. And it's important. Today I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in Omaha, Nebraska in 1919. The lynching of Will Brown, a black gentleman who was accused of a crime. And because of it, there was a giant riot in Omaha, ending with his death. And it's something not many people know about. In Omaha, yeah, a lot of people know about it because we've been made to remember the past, even though we keep repeating it. So that's my warning. There is a trigger warning. But I'm trying to sugarcoat as much as I can. Let us begin. Racial tensions have always been there, but it's become more prevalent in the last few years with Black Lives Matter and the riots and the killings of black men, whether they're innocent or not, but it's just a very relevant topic anymore. And unfortunately, we pretend that we're more civilized than our forefathers, but we really aren't. And it's sad. So, in April 13th, 1919, it was the start of what was called the Red Summer. Now, this is not a Nebraska Husker type of thing or anything like that. It was called the Red Summer because of all the blood that was spilt on the streets during a 10-month period. And during this 10-month period, it was racial violence and riots that left over 250 black people dead. These racial riots occurred over three dozen cities across the United States, including Omaha. The Red Summer is something that I never heard of, and I'm suspecting you might not have heard of either. I've heard about it in the last few years, but before that, we were never taught about it in school. Apparently, learning about the atrocities of man is not important in our school system, and we're supposed to whitewash everything. And unfortunately, that's how a lot of the history is. It's whitewashed. You know, we're ostriches and we want to stick our head in the sand and not know what's actually going on. Now, I'm going to give a brief explanation of the Red Summer, but I'm focusing on Omaha because that's where I live. And even though Omaha usually is a flyover city, Nebraska's a flyover state, we're still a giant hub here. And hopefully I can educate a little bit. So, during World War One, there was an estimate of 500,000 African Americans that moved from the southern states up to the northern states and midwestern states. Northern and midwestern manufacturers were suffering a labor shortage because of all the troops over for World War One, and they're welcoming the influx of black people to work in the factories. Also, there was many black servicemen also that went to World War One. Well, after World War One was over, the soldiers returned, but their positions had been filled by black Southerners. Also, black servicemen that were returning to civilian life had a difficulty adjusting to this new awakening that they found overseas. As the tensions rose, so did the violence. Riots broke out in Georgia, Charleston, Texas, Arizona, Indiana, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Knoxville. And on September 28th, 1919, the violence came to Omaha. Let me go back a couple days. On September 25th of 1919, Milton Hoffman and Agnes Loback were assaulted when they were walking home from a late night movie. Both people were robbed, and Agnes was dragged into a ditch by her hair, and she was sexually assaulted. The next morning, the newspaper headline stated that a black beast had assaulted a pretty white girl. Agnes's brother, Joseph, led a group of 400 armed men to search for her assailant. Well, thankfully, a neighbor saw a suspicious Negro that lived in a house at 2418 South 5th Street who lived with a white woman. The horror. And of course, he had to be the perpetrator. So Joseph and 4 men located Will Brown and held him at gunpoint. He was in a back room of this house. He was taken to Agnes's house, who, of course, ID'd him as her assailant. Before the police could leave, a mob gathered outside to take Brown for themselves. After hours of confrontation, the police finally prevailed and was able to get him to the Douglas County Courthouse. That night, though, they kept 48 officers at the courthouse to keep peace. This was on September 27th that he got taken to the courthouse. By the morning of September 28th, a group of people had marched onto the courthouse. Eventually, thousands of people gathered, joining them. Eventually, there was upwards of 15,000 people surrounding the courthouse. At 8 that evening, the mob started shooting at the courthouse with guns that they looted from surrounding stores. During the exchange of gunfire, one of the rioters, a 16-year-old, and a businessman that was blocks away were killed. Well, shooting the courthouse wasn't good enough for them. They decided to start it on fire. Inside, Brown was begging to the sheriff that he was innocent. And the mayor decided to go outside. And he was outside of the courthouse trying to reason with the mob. Well, somebody threw something. He was knocked in the head. And the next thing he knew, he had a rope around his neck. And they started pulling him up on a light pole. He fought his way free, but then they put the rope back around his neck and threw it back over the light pole and started hoisting him up. So that's the last thing he remembers. As he went unconscious, a car drove up through the mob, knocking people out of their way and everything. And they got the mayor down and drove him off and took him to a hospital. It was several days later that he regained consciousness. He was in serious condition the whole time, but he was trying to do what was right, and mob rules, I guess. The fact was that the mob was more concerned about wanting to get in there to get Brown out of the courthouse. So that's the reason they moved their attention away from the sheriff or from the mayor. Around 11 p.m., they stormed the courthouse and got him out. They took him to the corner of 18th and Harney Street and hung him there. While his body was dangling from the rope, they riddled his body with bullets. After they're done with that, they cut him down, tied him to the back of a car, and drug him to 17th and Dodge. There, his body was burnt, but that still didn't satisfy this group of god-awful people. They took his charred body and drug it around the streets of downtown Omaha. They even sold parts of the rope for 10 cents each. I found one witness statement about the whole thing. In 1975, Henry Fonda, the actor, he was born in Omaha. He spoke about the lynching. He was 14 at the time, and he was working at his father's printing plant, which was across the street from the courthouse. He said, and I'm going to quote him, "It was the most horrendous sight I'd ever seen. We locked the plant, went downstairs, drove home in silence. My hands were wet. There were tears in my eyes. All I could think about was that young black man dangling at the end of the rope. Brown was buried in Potter's Field with a marking that said lynched. And that was that. And sadly, it was not until 2012 that he finally got a proper headstone and marking from a California donor. It wasn't even somebody from Omaha. It was a California donor. Now, if you've listened to my previous things, a prostitute has a huge tomb. Well, all Will Brown got was a sign that said lynched. No one was ever tried for his death or the attempted lynching of Mayor Smith. This was one of the last riots of the Red Summer of 1919. And that's the reason I wanted to focus on that one. It's it's such a touchy subject, racism. And I'm just some dumb white boy that lived in a small white community. But my parents raised me right and said, don't judge a person by the color of their skin, judge them by their character. And that's how I've lived my life. But in the last 10 years from this town, I've seen how racist it was. And it's very sad. And looking back at this, throughout this, I've shared some pictures, trying to edit out things that, one, YouTube will not let me have. Two, I really don't think you need to see. If you want to see it, you can search it and find it. Okay, I'm not going to show it. Right now, I don't know where I'm going to put it. Probably down here or whatnot. There's a picture of the burning of poor Will. And I'm not showing that part. It's going to be off screen or blurred or whatnot. I don't know. That's what editing Sean has to deal with. But I want you to look at the faces. Look at these sick individuals smiling and laughing and wanting to be in this picture while a former human being is charring in this fire. It really saddens me. It really pisses me off. And this was in 1919. So we can say that, oh, they weren't as educated then. They were not as smart as we are now. But you know what? It still happens. Maybe not to this extent, but it happens. And it's sad. It's extremely freaking sad. My wife and I adopted a black child. Well, I didn't adopt him. She adopted him before we met, but he's still my son. And I didn't really pay attention too much, but in the last few years, I've paid attention. And if us as a white couple walk into places, we get that side eye from people looking when he's with us. What's going on here? I don't know if they're side eyeing him because he's black, or because what are two white people doing with a black kid, or oh, is this black kid going to steal something from us, or whatnot. And it pisses me off. Who cares what color his skin is? I'll be first to admit my kid's an asshole sometimes. But they don't know that. You know, as a parent, we can say that about our children. And nobody would bat their eye if my wife and I walked in with my 17-year-old who's white. Even though he looks like a scuzzy greaseball because of his long hair, his raggedy beard, and no one even look. They'd be like, oh, okay, white family. But we bring the black one along, and all hell breaks loose. A black friend of mine explained to me about white privilege, and he said, that's white privilege. That's what privilege is, that when you walk into some place and you're white, people aren't going to look at you weird. But if you have a darker skin color, even Hispanic, people are going to look at you, especially if it's a white business. Now, I've walked into many black businesses in Omaha where it's black owned, and they might look at you for a second and be like, oh, hey, how you doing? They accepted me. Because there's an awesome chicken place in North Omaha, which I've gone in there multiple times, and they look at me first and they go, oh, he's just here to eat. Well, yeah, I'm a fat guy. I love chicken. And they got great chicken. But I've always treated people how I think that they need to be treated. If you're going to be a jerk, I'm going to treat you like a jerk. If you're going to be kind, I'm going to treat you like you're kind. And yeah, I said North Omaha. Around this time, they were redlining in Nebraska, or in Omaha. So, you know, like in big cities, they might have Chinatown and different things like that. Well, Omaha had that too, where there was North Omaha, which was for the predominantly blacks, and then there was the South Omaha, which was the Italians. There was the Bohemian area. They separated all these areas for people. Well, the rest of them just all integrated. You know, we still have places that's predominantly Jewish, some that are predominantly Hispanic, but in those areas you also see a mix of things. Unfortunately, North Omaha has stayed primarily black. And even though I respect them and everything like that, and I've been in North Omaha many times, you see a significant change when you go there. And that's sad. And they're trying to fix up North Omaha to make it nicer. Unfortunately, I think they're doing it in the wrong way. The city, I mean, because they're doing gentrification, which is not helping. You know, buy up a whole bunch of property and then rent it out to whoever's going to pay the highest. Doesn't need to be. So let me get off my soapbox quickly. And I've rambled on for way too long, and I do apologize for that. Just reading this about Will Brown and doing this just really upset me. So I hope I taught you something. As always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. The only way I can do more of these is with more subscribers. You know, it shows me that I'm actually getting my voice out there. And I'm a loudmouth. I love to talk and I love to entertain. So for the 3 people that probably watch this, thank you. For the 1 person that's made it this far, I love you, man. Thanks a lot. But if you have made it this far and haven't subscribed or haven't hit the like button or made a comment, please do. I want to know your opinions. If you think I suck, say, hey, man, you suck. Hey, what's this stupid cat doing on your shoulder? Go for it. All I have to do is delete it if it's really rude. So, until next time, love each other, be kind to your neighbor, and peace.